Hi, welcome back to Focal Point AFR Talk. Brian Fisher is my name. Free for all Friday. Talk about anything you want to talk about. And to prove it, let's go to Jesus in Texas. Jesus, welcome to Focal Point with Brian Fisher. What's on your mind today?
Yes, sir. I want to make a comment or ask a question. My question is, where's Al Sharpton and Jesse Jackson? You know, they get on everything when you talk or when it relates to African American. And Alan West in Florida, you know, what he's going through. And I haven't heard of Jesse Jackson or Al Sharpton say anything about it.
Well, you know, and that's a very good point. Alan West is a member of the Congressional Black Caucus. He joined the Congressional Black Caucus. He's African American. He's a veteran military guy. And there's now very good reason to think that he was a victim of voter fraud. There was one period of time, about 45 minutes, where there was a 4,000 vote swing. Just instantly, early votes were recounted, and all of a sudden he was upside down 4,000 votes. How does that happen? And so there's a question, and they're asking now for a complete recount of all the votes in his district. Don't know whether he will get it. That's probably going to be up to a judge because the vote differential was outside the margin that calls for an automatic recount. But, you know, Jesus, that's a really good point. Where's Al Sharpton? Where's Jesse Jackson? Here you got a black guy that's being railroaded, is a victim of voter fraud. I thought Eric Holder was supposed to be all over this stuff. I thought, if a black was a victim of voter fraud, he was going to bring the full wrath and fury of the entire federal government down on whoever was responsible for that miscarriage of justice. But all you're getting is crickets in this case. Jesus, I got one more question for you if you're willing to stick with me for a minute.
Yes, sir.
Now, I'm assuming you're Hispanic. Is that right?
Yes, sir, I am.
Now, would you consider yourself a conservative? And if you're willing to, you don't have to, but do you vote Republican?
Yes, sir, I do.
Okay. Now, here's what I want to ask you, because, you know, people are the whole deal in the GOP right now. How do we get Latinos to vote Republican? How do we get them to vote conservative? Because it was 73-26. Latinos voted for Obama, 26% voted for Romney. And so I want to ask you, Jesus, if you can crystallize for our listening audience, why do you, as a Latino, why are you a conservative, and why do you vote for the more conservative of the two candidates?
Well, first of all, I'm a Christian, and I believe I couldn't vote Democrat knowing what the Bible calls for. And I just couldn't do it. But I mean, the people that I have talked to, even family members, it's more like, what can they give me? Who can give me more? And that's kind of where it's at right now for the Hispanic.
So that's what you're seeing with people that you know, that they, from your personal experience, people you know and talk to, the Hispanics that you know that tend to vote Democratic because they believe that the Democratic Party is the party of bigger government and more government benefits. Is that what I'm hearing from you?
Yes, sir. Yeah.
Now, do you see, I mean, let me ask you this question, Jesus. If the head of the Republican Party sat down with you and said to you, Jesus, you are Hispanic, you vote for the Republican candidate because he's the more conservative of the two, how can we reach Hispanics who vote for Democrats because they support big government? How can we reach them and convince them to vote for the Republican Party? What would you tell them?
Well, I don't know. That's a hard question, and I've during this elections I've reached across and I convinced some people, Christian people, but it's hard to convince non-Christian people because their mentality, again, you know, it's I don't know if I could answer that, but because their mentality is, you know, it's based on who can give me more.
Yeah. All right, Jesus.
I did went across and I convinced Christians, you know, that in the last time around they voted for Obama, and this time around I convinced them from the information that I gathered from AFR and AFA that on abortion and homosexual marriage and all that.
All right. Well, that's fascinating. Jesus, I really appreciate you sticking around and answering a couple of extra questions. That's Jesus from Texas talking about why he votes Republican, and it's on the values issues. Did you get that? It's a values thing for Jesus because he believes in God. He believes in the Scripture. He believes in the sanctity of life. He believes in man-woman marriage, and that's why he votes Republican, because that's the party, at least in its platform. Not that they're particularly good at defending or promoting it, and Mitt Romney didn't talk about that stuff hardly at all, but at least it's in their platform to support those values, and that's why he votes Republican. So that would certainly be part of the equation here for the Republican Party. If you're listening, Karl Rove, are you listening? Reince Priebus, are you listening? All you nattering nabobs of negativism out there telling the GOP you got to go to amnesty to get the Latino vote, are you listening? It's not immigration. It is values. If you want to make inroads with the Hispanic community, be the party of social values. How much clearer could that be? Well, listen, Jesus, I really, really appreciate that call very, very much. And by the way, I got beat up by Chris Matthews the other night. As a caller yesterday said, I went back and looked at the Chris Matthews clip, and I think I'll play it for you on Monday, and you'll be able to hear the Chris Matthews clip on his program and how he cut up the segment in which I talked at length about immigration, how he cut that up and then used it to make me look as bad as possible. Not that that should be a surprise, but I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to air the Chris Matthews clip on Monday, and then right after that, I'm going to air the entire segment out of which he took about 45 seconds of my monologue and cobbed it together to make his soundbite. I mean, he's pulling stuff from here and pulling stuff from there and pulling a little snatch from over here to get the soundbite that he produced. And so we'll play the Chris Matthews soundbite. Then I'm going to play the whole segment so you will get the entire context from which his little segments were drawn. So that'll be coming up on Monday. Let's go to D in Mayaca City, Florida. D, you're on Focal Point with Brian Fisher. What's on your mind?
Well, first of all, excuse me, thank you for taking my call. I appreciate that. I was wondering if anybody had considered the downstream effect of offering amnesty to the illegals, in the sense that if they do that, then they're going to have the privileges of being citizens. And the businesses that are employing them right now for the sake that they can pay them less per hour are going to be required to pay them minimum wage, and then, of course, insurance and workers' comp and Social Security, all these other things, which means the positions that they're holding right now, they probably won't be able to afford these people, and therefore they'll have to eliminate a bunch of them. The people that would get amnesty that are here now that aren't working are, for the most part, probably illiterate and unable to function in an English society, and unskilled, uneducated. So what's going to happen to all these people? The ones that lose their jobs, the ones that are given amnesty, they're not going to be able to work, they're not going to be able to get money, so they're going to end up going on the welfare rolls and on the other subsidies from the government. And right now the government's saying we're fixing to go over a financial cliff. You're going to dump millions of people onto these rolls instantaneously, and where's the money going to come from? I mean, they're already saying we got to cut back, we got to raise taxes and all this. You dump that many people on it, it's going to collapse the situation. And then what's going to happen then? They're not going to be able to get these things. They're not going to get the money, and then you're going to run into situations like Katrina and New York, where the people start getting upset because they can't get food, they can't get money, and then they're going to start protesting and rioting and causing more civil unrest.
Well, and I think it's a good analysis, Dee, because you think about it. One of the reasons that I believe that a conservative worldview appeals to Hispanics, those that are here legally, I mean, people that are here illegally, I believe, need to be held accountable for breaking our laws. I mean, that's the bottom line for me. We believe in the rule of law. It's part of a stable society. So you break a law, there ought to be some kind of penalty that you have to pay for that. And I think we need to enforce that, hold people accountable for breaking our immigration law. I mean, to me, that is just a no-brainer. That's where you start with a simple matter where rule of law and justice. But one of the reasons I think legal Hispanics, why conservative worldview appeals to them, is we are here to protect their jobs. If you've immigrated to this country legally, you're Hispanic, you've got a job, you're working, we do not want you to lose your job to somebody who doesn't even have the right to be in this country, to lose a job to that person where you have an employer that can pay him under the table and doesn't have to pay his Social Security wages and doesn't have to be responsible for any of his Medicare and all that kind of stuff. And so we want to protect your jobs. We're here to protect your jobs. Doesn't matter to us that you're Hispanic. You're here legally. You have the right to work here. We want to protect you. We want to protect your job. I think if that's articulated, that can make a difference. And one other thought, Dee, and I appreciate your call very much. I just did some back of the envelope figuring, here's the other thing that is just so completely suicidal about Republican Party thinking this way. I mean, set aside the fact whether this is good or bad for the country. I think amnesty is bad for the country for some of the reasons that Dee was talking about. It's just going to crash the system, and it'd just be a magnet. If these people become legal and then their employees have to pay them minimum wage, what it's going to do, it's going to be a magnet for more illegal aliens to come across the border and take those jobs away from the people that were just made citizens. So it's just going to be a magnet for more illegal immigration. And why wouldn't they say, if I'm an illegal living in another country and I look at all the amnesty that was granted, then I'm going to try to sneak across the border because they're going to do it for me someday. If Ronald Reagan did it in 1986 for $3 million and these Republican chumps did it for 20 million illegals in 2013, then they're going to do it for me. I mean, you talk about a magnet for illegal immigration. But here's the other deal. I'm going to pick a number out of the air. It's between 12 and 20 million illegals. Let's assume there's 20 million illegals just for the sake of argument. Now, we know that they vote, 75-25 for the Democrats. Do you see how insane this is for the Republicans to go along with this? If they legalize 20 million illegal aliens who are voting 75-25 for the Democrats, they just gave the Democratic Party a 10 million vote boost. Of those 20 million, 15 million are going to vote Democrats, 5 million are going to vote Republicans. You just gave them, by being played for total suckers and chumps, you just gave your political adversaries 10 million free votes. Focal Point AFR Talk, back after the news.